Welcome to One Spark at a Time with me, Rabbi Adam Miller. A Jewish mystical legend tells that during creation, something broke and shattered, sending sparks of divine holiness around the world. It is our responsibility as individuals to do acts of tikkun olam, to repair the world around us, knowing that each time we do a good deed, we are gathering one more of those sparks and making the world a little more whole and holy. Today, we'll meet an individual doing this sacred work of repairing our world, one spark at a time. Dr. Jaclynn Faffer has been a visionary leader in the field of human services for over 25 years. She is the president and CEO of the Naples Senior Center at JFCS, a non-sectarian human service agency. Dr. Faffer received her Master's of Social Work from Tulane University and a doctoral degree in social welfare from Yeshiva University. In March of 2016, Dr. Faffer was recognized by the Naples Daily News in their 2016 class of 25 over 50 for the impact that she has had on Collier County. Jackie, welcome to One Spark at a Time.
Thank you. A pleasure to be with you.
It's a delight to have you here and to see you. It's been a little while since we've been able to be face-to-face with all that's going on. So let's start there with the last few chaotic months. How are things with you right now?
Thank God for my family. We are all well, struggling with the forced isolation, but thank God physically we are all well, and emotionally we're all well too. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. It's difficult what we've all been going through. And I'm sure in some ways your work over the last 25, 30 years has been preparing you for how others deal with these kinds of situations. You spent 25 years in the field of human services. When did you know that this would be the path for you? I imagine this wasn't on the list of career options back when you were in elementary school or even middle school. So how did you find your way here?
I actually love this question because there is a specific moment in time.
Oh, really?
And yes, and you're right. I was going to be a teacher.
Ah.
That's what Jewish girls my age, that's what we did. Now, I was very involved in Perth Amboy, New Jersey with BBG. And I was a regional president. And the summer before my senior year in high school, I had the opportunity to go to Starlight, Pennsylvania, to the summer program, International Leadership Training Program, that BBYO sponsored. I left my home knowing I was going to be a teacher. I came home a month later knowing I was going to be a social worker. Wow. I took a course with Sidney Clearfield, who was one of the social work leaders of BBYO, and the class was My Son, the Social Worker. And I just fell in love with the idea of helping people. And at that point, of course, I modeled my thinking after helping people in groups, being a youth leader, being that type of social worker. But I was committed to it. And I actually said to my father, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I want to be a social worker. And he said, I'll make a deal with you. You get your degree in education, and I will pay for any graduate school afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So I should note, he said, because then you'll always have something to fall back on if you're a teacher. So he kept his word and paid for my education through my PhD.
Wow. So going to BBG, which is the girls part of BBYO, B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, a long-standing Jewish youth group, that seems to have really played an impactful role on the journey that you've taken.
Yes.
Was Sidney perhaps the most influential person for you along this, or were there others who helped transform you?
Well, at that point, yes, he was. And I ran into him a number of years ago and said, remember that class you gave sitting under a tree in Starlight, Pennsylvania? It changed my life. But later on, my first executive director at Jewish Family and Community Services of Long Island was truly my mentor. And he taught me what social work meant. Mm-hmm. And the way he did that, and this was before emails, before faxes. So when he wanted to meet with me, I'd have to sit with him in his office. And very often he would get a phone call and he would say to me, do you mind if I take this call? And I would listen to him. And I would listen to the way he handled all kinds of situations. And I probably learned more from sitting at his feet, listening to those calls, than I did in any formal course. And it was an agency similar to what we were when we first evolved here. And he had such a compassion for people and such an understanding of people in their situations that I like to think I've modeled myself after him.
It sounds like you've had some remarkable role models who have been there to
Fortunate.
help guide you and shape you along the way. How have your Jewish values impacted the work that you are doing and the path you've chosen?
Well, Tikkun Olam, of course, is the guiding value for all of what I do. But I learned early on as a child, probably from my parents, that you treat other people as you want to be treated yourself, and that you make yourself available to help other people who are struggling. If I go back even before age 16, when I was in BBG, I went to the YMHA teen tween camp. And my friend and I, and he became a social justice attorney, we used to have at the bus stop what we called confidential corner. And we would sit on a stoop and our friends would bring their problems to us one at a time. So this has probably been ingrained in my DNA.
You started off young, working with others and helping them.
Yes.
It's wonderful to have that kind of vision. You mentioned being on Long Island. I know your career has taken you to a number of different places. What brought you here to Naples, Florida?
It was a fluke. We had vacationed in Naples and Sanibel for 20 years. And I was at the point in my career when I was beginning to think about next steps, and I was beginning to look at returning up to the Northeast. And the then head of our national association called me and he said, I have a job for you. And I said, okay, where is it? And he said, well, don't yell at me, but it's in Florida. I said, Florida? I don't want to stay in Florida. He said, but it's in Naples. You love Naples. I said, Naples? What do they need a family service agency for? All I knew was waterside and the beaches. So he said, do me a favor, just take a look at the strategic plan that they wrote. And it was chaired by Dave Rutstein. He sent me the strategic plan. I read it and I said, you are right. This is the next step for me. This organization wants to move forward, broaden what it's doing. And it was like a blueprint of what I had done before and what I loved best, which is community building. And I got to live in a place that I loved. So it all works out.
Indeed, a place that you love. Well, you went from knowing that we were a place with good shopping and beautiful beaches to really getting to be a part of our community, to be really, if I might say, a pillar of our community.
Thank you.
The work that you've been doing.
When
you first arrived, though, as you referenced, the organization that you came to was not anything like what it is today. Mm-hmm. So tell us about what it was like. It was still not even a separate entity, and about the first stages of the transformation that you witnessed.
Well, we were a division of the Federation, as you know, and there are a number of JFS agencies that start that way. And it was myself and 2 part-time employees. And the first thing I did when I got there was I pulled closed case records to look at people who did not get service. And I saw that there were 60 seniors who had requested help but had not gotten service because they were unable to come into the agency. And I said, wow, we need a geriatric case management program. The backbone, the core service of many JFS agencies is serving seniors who are homebound. So I was able to get a $10,000 challenge grant, a donation from a philanthropist who I was close to on the East Coast. And he said, your board has to match this, and they have to match it by the end of the year, and it can't be pledges, it has to be cash in the bank. And when I think about that $10,000 and where we are today, that really spurred us on to really evolving to where we are today. That $10,000 seed money, the board met it, and then we hired a part-time geriatric case manager. And we began to uncover all the needs in the community.
That's remarkable. You mentioned before thinking, what does Naples need a Jewish family and community services program for? Because we're a place where you find a large senior population. Why do you think that demographic was not being served from a human services perspective?
I talk about this a lot when my colleagues say Collier County gives so little to social services. And of course, this is a community built on real estate and built on tourism. So intellectually, I understand from a business perspective why the reality of human suffering is not put forward. Mm-hmm. Plus, seniors, there's still the myth that seniors who retire to Naples are doing very, very well, when in reality, it's a tale of two cities. We have those who are doing well, those who are not doing well. We have those who did well and outlived their income. So it's a hard picture to put forward in paradise. So yeah. I think that's part of it.
So you watched the transition from Caterpillar and a committee of another organization to standalone, and now being a young butterfly spreading its wings.
Thank you. Very kind.
It started addressing those needs of the seniors, really began with a meal program. In fact, those early lunches, I remember, were at Temple Shalom. And
right.
While some might have said, great, we've accomplished something, we've started to connect with the seniors, you knew at that point you would only scratch the surface. What clues inspired you to keep pushing even further?
Well, among the 25 to 30 seniors who came once a month to the wonderful, and we called it Just Lunch program at Temple Shalom, we saw that there were other needs. We saw that there were people struggling financially. We saw the depth of the isolation. And we knew that there needed to be some comprehensive senior service. But it wasn't until one of your members, Ed Anschel, came to one of our events and heard me talk about the lunch program. And he met with me. I could see it like if it's yesterday in my office, my small office with a small sofa. And he said, I'd like to think about giving you funding to have the luncheon every week. And I said, oh my God, we can't do that. He said, why not? I said, well, because we would need a home to have it in. You can't be a guest every week. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, what would you need in order to do it? I said, we'd need a senior center. He said, well, where would you put the senior center? And we walked across the hall to the undeveloped space in the building. And I said, this is where we would put it. And that's really how it began. Now, the senior center, when it opened, addressed isolation and loneliness, financial need, mental health needs. But the one need we weren't addressing was dementia. Mm. And after we were open about 8 months, I was approached by someone else who said, you say that you're the central address for senior services, but yet you don't do anything for dementia. And he gave me a seed grant, and we started one dementia respite group. Now we have, I think, 14 groups going, and the initial 80 members that came to the center has swelled to 1,400. So clearly the need was there.
The need was absolutely there. And one of the things that it sounds like, is you've been able to connect with people and make them appreciate the power of what's happening. I know from interacting with you that you have a gift for capturing the heart with the stories of those whose lives have been touched by your organization. Can you share with our audience one or two stories that have really resonated the strongest with you over the years?
Yes. And this is a story I've told before, but to me, this epitomizes the need for what we do. We opened our doors in 2014, and 80 seniors slowly walked in for the first lunch we were offering. And the woman right up front, a small gray-haired woman, looked very anxious, and I approached her and welcomed her. And she said, this is the first time I will be having a meal with someone since my husband passed away 2 years ago.
Wow.
Now, at that point, I didn't know the whole story. And the reality was this was a woman who lived in a gated community with a clubhouse, but she was painfully, painfully shy.
Hmm.
And she didn't feel comfortable going out and socializing. Her late husband was the one who arranged all of that. She became one of our most active members. She made friends. I would see her out and about with friends, and at one point they were both wearing the silk scarves they painted in our art class. So you talk about emerging as a butterfly. This woman is an example of someone who was able to do that.
And the senior center enabled her to do that.
Yes, yes. And another example is a man, and he's passed away, and he's in our videos, so I can talk about it. He was the CEO of Porsche, and certainly had everything available to him that he would need, that money could buy. But the services we offer, money can't buy.
Mm.
And we are, in fact, the only dementia respite program in the area. So his wife, who I know through Greater Naples Leadership, asked if he would be a candidate for the respite program. And he was evaluated and became a member of the dementia respite group. And one of his best buddies in the group was a woman who was a cocktail waitress in Las Vegas. And you'd look in on this group and you would see the people chatting away and having friends and communicating. And I looked at these two people from two different walks of life, joined together, unfortunately through dementia, but fortunately having the opportunity to have a structured day and somewhat of a better life.
Wow, those are very powerful stories, and it speaks to the humanity and the human beings who are being impacted by the work that you have embraced. I know the stories we've been talking about and the work we've been talking about has focused a lot on seniors. And one of the myths is that the organization serves only those who are of a certain age group, yet we know that it goes beyond that. Talk a little bit about how Naples Senior Center at JFCS embodies all of the JFCS part of that name.
Well, while we primarily serve seniors, we do have some programs that are open to everyone, all ages. Food pantry, when we are operational from the site, is open to everyone. And we do take referrals from our trusted community partners like yourself of families who are in need of emotional support. Certainly seniors have families too. Mm-hmm. And we serve the seniors' adult children and their adult grandchildren.
You know, the other piece of this is a belief that somehow JFCS would only be there for the Jewish community. Yet, as we talked about in the introduction, it's a non-sectarian agency. Share with our audience the scope of your work that has and the lack of boundaries that are there.
We serve everyone. We say 60 and above, but I just shared we have flexibility there. And we serve at this point our population is about 30% Jewish at this point, 25 to 30% Jewish. So it's an interesting marketing issue because the non-Jewish community believes we serve only Jews. Mm-hmm. The Jewish community feels that perhaps we don't serve enough Jews. Mm. When in reality, since we serve everyone who comes to our doors, we don't turn anyone away. We truly believe we embody tikkun olam, which is repair the world. It doesn't say repair the Jewish world. But that's a challenge that we continue to face across the board.
I can understand that. And it is about repairing the whole world, right, and all the brokenness that we see. So you're certainly accomplishing that piece of it.
If I might tell one more anecdote.
Absolutely.
About this, a woman who came to our lunches when we were at the temple, a Jewish woman, went into an assisted living facility. And she went into one where there weren't that many Jews, and she was uncomfortable. So she asked if we could help her with transportation to come to our weekly lunches. And she very quietly said, "I'd like to sit at a Jewish table." So as you can imagine, we don't have signs on the tables.
Right.
But we knew there was a table with many of her buddies from the Temple Shalom days. And she now comes to the luncheon. Well, when we were open, she came to the luncheon every week. We helped her family move her to a community where there were more Jewish people, and she's very happy.
It's remarkable the way you can impact lives and relationships in that way.
Yes, and she felt comfortable enough to say that to us.
Mm-hmm. So for those who aren't aware, the future is looking bright. We'll talk about what's happening right now in a moment, but the future overall looks bright in that you're working on a new building, a new facility.
Yes.
Share a little bit about that.
Okay. The coup for us and the giant step forward was that we not only got staff approval for the rezoning from the county staff, but the planning commission voted 4-1 in support of our program. We were all set to go April 14th to go before the commissioners. COVID-19 had other plans. We then were scheduled for the end of this month. That's been postponed. Now we're told that there is a definite date for June. I believe it's 23rd or 26th. We just got this yesterday. Some of it will be virtual, some of it will be in person. And we still face opposition from the neighborhood, but we are encouraged by the support that we're getting. We've raised $13 million of a $15 million campaign. We put a pause on the campaign fundraising until we know what's going to happen with the zoning. But we have the plans designed, and we are very, very excited to be moving to a place where we don't have to squeeze people in.
I can understand that. What will that new facility have?
It will have 4 specific rooms for dementia respite, which will mean that we can bring everyone other than our Marco programs in-house, so that while the people are having the respite program, their caregivers can participate in other programs. It will have a lunchroom that will seat far more than we seat now. The second floor will be all, administrative offices and the wing for dementia. It will have outdoor space where we can have passive walking trails. And one of our most popular programs is the Seed to Table program that we have. And they grow herbs in pots, and, here we'll have a real garden area outside.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, if you had a crystal ball, Jackie, and you could look ahead, what do you anticipate as the challenges facing human services and seniors in particular in the next 5, 10, even 20 years?
It's so hard to look forward now because we're living in such a different world. And we know that technology will be making life very different for everyone. And people who are comfortable with technology now, they'll just become more comfortable. But people who are younger will be entering those senior years being comfortable with technology. So we won't have that much of a leap. I think the challenges will be the same. There will continue to be isolation and loneliness. Hopefully, people will still have partners. God forbid those partners die, someone is left alone. So the transitions of life will continue. My dream is that the needs of seniors can be in the forefront, just as needs of children are today. And fundraising for seniors and bringing that story forward is not only challenging here, but it's one of the most difficult demographics to raise money for. Let's face it, people want to look at the future and give to the future. I'll never forget a picture that I saw, I think it was from the wine festival, of children holding up a balloon. One said, I want to be a doctor. Another one said, I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a teacher. What would we have for seniors? One would hold up the balloon saying, I hope I have enough medication that I can afford my medication. The other would be, I hope I get to have a meal with someone other than my 4 walls. So the way we put forth the needs of seniors has to change, and we have to hope that we can have the community embrace it. I always say there are parents, They're our grandparents. They gave us life. Hopefully they gave us good lives. Now it's our turn to take care of them.
That's quite a powerful image with the balloons that you paint for us. And you've referenced a few times the importance of being able to bring people together to overcome the isolation. Right now, we know that COVID-19 is on everyone's mind, and I imagine the pandemic has impacted your work quite significantly, particularly the ability to bring people together. What have you done as an organization to adapt under these conditions, and how has it impacted what you're doing?
What's ironic is that the organization who was founded to ameliorate isolation and loneliness and bring people together had to pivot quickly and say, go home, stay home.
Right.
We can't have you here. So we were kind of stunned, as everyone else was. And initially, we got our cadre of 225 volunteers to we developed lists for them. So we make 900 calls a week to our seniors to check in with them, to let them know that we care. Initially, we had programs, streaming programs that they could participate, that they could watch, like different musical events, theater. Then we learned very quickly that they don't want to do that. They want to participate. If they can't be with their friends, they want to see their friends and be able to talk to them. So Zoom, we entered the world of Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And we offer over 225 programs on Zoom. We have our Guide Time group from the center meeting every week on Zoom, and even the people who went back north now can participate. We have art classes, we have dance classes, all on Zoom, very successful. We offer a 1 hour a day dementia respite program on Zoom, and we open it 30 minutes early so the caregivers can talk with each other. We're doing our caregiver support group, also on Zoom. And we're delivering food to approximately between 40 and 45 households every week. And their food pantry staples, and we also give them a hot lunch. It's great, but it's certainly not the answer to what's going on, because we do have people who can't participate, won't participate, don't participate, and nothing really takes the place of being together, as
Sure.
you well know.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 4 people with dementia decline who are now going into placement. So all the research that we have done and we have studied on the physical and cognitive impact of isolation and loneliness, we're seeing it. We're seeing it. But we will continue to do what we're doing. We expand our programs every week, and we hope it's a holding pattern until we could get back to some sort of business as usual. And I know what the next question will be, and the answer is I don't know.
When will business as usual return? I wouldn't even ask that question, because anyone who gives you an answer right now is just guessing, because we don't know that answer. But we do know that it's important for us to continue to be there for each other and to create opportunities using whatever technology we can to keep them connected. If you don't mind shifting a moment, I've gotten a couple questions in from people who are watching us on Facebook and listening in other ways. One of the questions wants to follow up on what you were just talking about, the things that are happening right now during COVID-19. One piece of the organization we haven't talked about is that you're also the local source for PJ Library. For those who aren't familiar, PJ Library is a national program that helps to bring Jewish books, materials, and engagement to young families and children who are out there, sponsored by the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. It's a remarkable organization. And your organization here is the local PJ Library group. So this person wants to know, has PJ Library worked towards, or is there anything you've done with families during COVID-19?
Yes.
Most of the answer focused on seniors.
Yes. We've reached out to every family member, every family who is part of the program. Some respond, some don't. And we have offered virtual programs for them. However, we have to keep in mind that for the most part, these are young parents who have their hands full. If the kids are in school, they have their hands full teaching and helping them go through that. And we all know what it's like to have very young children, and it's a challenge. We continue to offer the opportunity to virtually meet. There have been some who have needed our financial assistance, and we've been able to provide that.
Great. Another question comes in. What do you see in the demographics locally when it comes to seniors? Do you anticipate this growing or stabilizing in the next few years?
We predict demographers have predicted that there will be a significant increase in people over age 65, the largest increase being in people over 80. And this was all before COVID-19. But of course, the longevity factor has been related to the fact that medically, we know a lot more than we used to know. So we see the need for our services increasing. There is expected to be a dramatic increase in dementia. Right now, over 22,000 people in the Collier, Southern Lee County area have dementia, and more than half of them have family caregivers, and they expect that to increase.
That actually, you just touched on the next question that came in, which is asking, you're based out of Naples. What is the range that you serve? And you mentioned South Lee County. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. We will serve, and let's pretend that we're open, the facility's open. We will serve anyone who can come to us. So if you can get here, we will serve you. The exception being Marco Island. We do have 3 dementia respite groups on Marco Island.
Oh, wow.
So when we talk about the future, I would envision we look at the new proposed facility as our home base. But as time goes on, we think there will be a need for our services similar to Marco further out east as development occurs. So I would envision satellites providing services to seniors. Now that we are doing things virtually, we say the Naples Senior Center has a national impact as we have people sitting in on programs all across the country.
Speaking of a national impact, another question, the last question that's come in from our audience is asking, have other organizations followed your model? Clearly you have found a way to connect with seniors and meet a need that's here. They imagine the need is elsewhere. Have others followed on this model that you're creating?
What's kind of different about us is that we're a senior center located within a broader human service agency. So that any need that is offered, any need that anyone has, usually can be met within our organization. And there are a few other agencies like this throughout the country. The model has traditionally been that it's within a JCC, or it's within a county service. So I'm involved nationally with some groups that are working with dementia folks, and they're taking a good look at the model that we have. And I would imagine that more human service agencies will begin to offer pieces of what we do.
Wonderful. Well, I have to say, Jackie, your drive and your enthusiasm for your work are remarkable.
Thank you.
What keeps you motivated? What is it that keeps you up at night that you have to keep working, and what wakes you up in the morning and you say, I got the energy now, I'm ready to go?
Well, a lot of things keep me up at night, even before COVID. Worrying about rezoning kept me up. Working with people whose needs are just so deep.
Yeah.
But the energy is that I do see change. I do see the ability for us to bring about change. And I always say, I specialized in my doctoral research was around chronic illness and working with social workers who helped families help others deal with it emotionally. And I used to tell my students that, and my colleagues, that we're fortunate as social workers. We're not there to cure the physical disease. We're there to effect a change in the human condition. And that's something we can do. And that's what energizes me. In fact, when the facility was open, if I was sitting in my office upstairs and having a tough call or a tough moment, I would just go downstairs and walk around. And I would be energized, whether it was the art class or Tai Chi. or popping into the dementia respite program. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me energized.
Beautiful to hear the power of just seeing the work that you're doing.
Yes. Yes.
A final question that we like to ask those who participate in One Spark. You've embraced a calling to repair our world, helping the most vulnerable who are among us. What would you say to others who might see areas of need yet remain unsure about taking that leap to action?
The best way to do it is to try it. You know, that old commercial, try it, you'll like it. Whether it's to spend a little time volunteering, or I have the opportunity to talk with young people who are considering social work. The beauty of social work is that you do an internship and you really get to test out the population you're working with. But if you're struggling as to what field to go into, I would say do some volunteer work and attach yourself to a mentor, someone who's good at what they do and loves what they do. And then you'll see whether it's right for you or not. And it isn't right for everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jackie. It's been wonderful having you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Something like this energizes me. So thank you so much.
Well, I hope that you've energized some of those who are in our audience watching it live, or perhaps following along in the podcast or watching the videos later. We certainly are looking for inspiration right now and finding ways to help others. We know that during this time of COVID-19, we have a heightened awareness of our blessings, as well as a sensitivity to those who are in need more than ever before around us. Each session of One Spark, we highlight areas and opportunities for people to volunteer. It seems fitting to start with you and ask, what's happening at the Naples Senior Center at JFCS? How can people volunteer? How can they help? How can they make a difference with your organization?
We have, as I've mentioned, 225 volunteers. And right now they are making phone calls and they're involved in delivering food to the seniors. The challenge for us is because we work with a vulnerable population, anyone who volunteers for us has to have a background check. Now, if someone is really eager to do something for us now, and I know our manager of volunteers will shoot me, but if they really want to do something for us now, let me know and we'll find a way to do it.
That's great. Thank you. And I think we'll keep the focus there on Naples Senior Center at JFCS. For people looking for volunteer opportunities, contact them, see what there's opportunities that are out there. There are so many organizations we know in our area who are looking for help, be it through food, addressing food insecurity with Meals of Hope, or with the Harry Chapin Food Bank, be it those who are addressing the needs of homelessness through St. Matthew's House, and through the Naples Senior Center, addressing the needs of our vulnerable community that are out there. There's so much work to be done. We hope that all those who are listening are taking this to heart and are feeling some level of inspiration. I want to thank all of those who are in the audience for watching and listening to One Spark at a Time with me, Rabbi Adam Miller from Temple Shalom. If you missed any part of this experience today or want to watch other episodes, the full video will be available on the Temple Shalom of Naples YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to the One Spark at a Time podcast, available on Apple and your favorite podcast providers. Jackie, thank you again so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
It's been a delight to talk with you. And as we conclude, friends, I want to share with you a teaching from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. As we part ways, may you be inspired to embrace this teaching and know that you too have the power to fix our broken world, one spark at a time.